Okay. Welcome, Anu.
Hi,
Namaste.
Vandana.
So wonderful to have you here. And today, we'll be having a very friend-to-friend chat um, about wellness and about health, and what is the meaning of wellness, and what does it mean to be healthy, and the reason for this conversation is basically, for it to be the purpose, the intention for this conversation is for it to be a talk that brings about hope and positivity. Um, and I intend for it to be a solution-oriented conversation where we talk about body's innate intelligence versus disease. Okay, so let's just quickly close the eyes and center ourselves, take a deep breath in and let go. And so let's begin. I want to introduce my lovely friend Anuradha Gupta here. Anuradha is a trained Ayurvedic wellness practitioner with Kerala Ayurveda. Welcome, Anu. Do you want to tell a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. I'm an engineer by training, and then I did my MBA. I worked in the corporate field for many years, and it was very stressful. And that's when I really started examining the nature of diseases. I felt sick myself.
Mm.
And after I got married, like my two kids, one of them, has the propensity to fall sick. So that's how I started exploring Ayurveda. I thought if I study it, and though it's in my lineage, my great grandmother was an Ayurvedic Vedya. I just felt I needed to study it to, just feel confident about trying it on my son. And then that's how I became an Ayurvedic counselor. And then I thought I needed a bit more. So I studied disease management. And yeah, it's become a way of life. It always is a way of life, right, Vandana? For our families, we grow up with Ayurvedic, whether it's diet or lifestyle. But now it's yeah, it's
Now it's
beautiful.
something that you're sharing with everybody else,
Yes, yes,
and what a beautiful sharing you do. You write these amazing blogs for the Art of Living, wellness website, and also you're one of the most caring people I know. You're
Oh,
so
thank you.
caring. You're always there to help, to give advice, and to support in whatever capacity that you can. So I'm so honored that you said yes to be here and to talk to me. So
Thank you.
absolutely. So Anu, there's two major things that we get to hear nowadays. On the one hand, we hear, "Oh, this pandemic is fake news." There's nothing like that happening. It's just a whole bunch of political noise that people in higher levels who have power, they are doing this to manipulate others. And then on the other hand, there is the sky is falling, you know, this gloom and doom, and oh my God, this is the worst of the times, and all of those things. So I was thinking it would be good for us to have a more nuanced discussion, a more
Yes.
nuanced understanding of not extremes, but the finer points, bringing out the finer points and bringing out the hope and comfort that there is a lot that we can do. you know
Yes.
so having said that, I'd like to read something from one of my favorite books by Gurudev Sri Ravi Shankar, and it's called Wisdom for the New Millennium. So if you'll allow me, I'll quickly read a little bit. Um, so it says here, healing with consciousness. What we see in human growth is the body comes first, and then the mind appears. It is the spirit that makes the body, the being that makes the body. Spirit develops it, retains it, and eventually separates from the body. The spirit, the being, is first. The life force in us makes all the functions happen in the body. It pumps the blood, it makes the brain function, it keeps the cells alive. So much activity in this physical system is run by life energy. Life energy, the consciousness, has enormous potentiality, infinite potentiality to control and affect change in the body. It is the consciousness, the mind, which feels a sensation of pleasure or pain. So the mind looks through the eyes and perceives the objects of the world. The mind hears through the ears and perceives the objects in the world. It perceives the sound. The rapport between you and the world is through the mind, through the spirit. In sleep, the mind is not in the world, it is with itself. It recoups. Again, in activity, the same mind goes out and projects and experiences pleasure or pain in the world. In sleep, you have no pleasure, no pain. You don't experience either of them. The mind retracts and consciousness gets back into its shell. The process of creation happens with the alternation of activity and rest. Getting back to the shell. Okay, yeah. And then getting back into the self, then rest and activity. This pulse between rest and activity, function and the gap is called life. The totality of this together is called life. Life is not just activity, life is not just rest. It is an alternation between these two. So life has a unique ability to heal itself and develop itself. The potentiality and the consciousness is amazing. The potentiality that the consciousness has is amazing. The consciousness, which has so much power to keep orderliness in all of creation, the intelligence that knows how tall each stem should be, where should be green, where should be yellow. One seed sprouts, one seed has the whole structure of the plant that will develop. What should be hard, what should be soft. So in the same way, our DNA contains contained in every cell of the body contains the whole program of our being. So affecting a change at the level of our being, the very core of our consciousness means what? We have to get back to the source. We have to get back to the sap. We have to get back to the seed. That source is our consciousness, our mind. From there exists infinite potentiality to control the body, its resistance, its power, its everything.
Beautiful.
How beautiful is that?
Yes, absolutely.
How empowering.
Yes, absolutely. And that is the Sankhya philosophy from which yoga and Ayurveda both have, kind of emanated. So the concept of the Purush and the Prakriti, the consciousness, and then the individual self. And at another level, what Gurudev talks about is, the science of epigenetics. So there is, the gene, the genetic typing that we have, and then the gene expression, which varies based on, our lifestyle, our, diet, and any choices that we make. And when the prana is high, we make good choices. So that's the disease process. In the disease process, we have, in Ayurveda, we say that there is something called pragnya prad, where you sometimes make an insult to the intellect and, you do something like overeat, and then you find that you're falling sick. And why does that happen? Because the prana is low. So when we tap into our consciousness, when we tap into ourself, when we are more aware, then, we are more in line with nature, we are more in line with natural rhythms, and we are healthier. So I just love this. Yes.
Yes, so beautiful. So Anu, can you just describe to us what is health? What is health? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Gurudev says it beautifully. We call it swasthya. To be swasthya, like, swasthya is health. So that means to be swastha, to be centered in the self. Exactly what, you just read, to be established in the source. And when you're established in the source, what happens? Like, there is a definition of health. So in fact, I'll just go over two definitions. So before Vandana and I started, we did a little, chant to Lord Dhanvantari. And what it was is that, all the ragas, all the diseases start from cravings and aversions, right? So a lot of it emanates from the mind. And then we say that, the unique healer is within ourselves. We invoke the unique healer within ourselves. But then what is health and what is disease? So according to Ayurveda, the definition is samadosha, sama agnishcha, samadhatu, malakriya, prasanna atma indriya, manaha, swastha iti abhidhyate. So basically, when your doshas, your energy principles are in balance, when your Agni, your digestive and metabolic fire is in balance, when your tissues are in balance, when the elimination, the excretion is in balance, and that is, whether it's urination or whether it's, bowel movement or whether it's sweating. And, then when your mind is happy, when your sense organs are happy, when your spirit is blissful, that's when you are in balance. So it takes into account everything. And then Ayurveda also considers your relationship with yourself, and then with your family, with your community, and with nature, with the environment. So with all of that, you're healthy. The other thing is, it's health is not merely the absence of disease. It's basically how happy you are. All of us are seeking happiness in mind, body. It's holistic in mind, body, spirit. So it's how happy and content you are. And there we talk about, the aspects of purusharth. We talk about, that we want a little bit of materialistic gain, right? We want some community, right? We want some enjoyment, and eventually we want, some meaning. We want some purpose in our lives. We want to ask ourselves, what is life? Why am I here? Right? So it's a very spiritual science. So all of it together constitutes health. Then we also look at the longevity and the quality of longevity of individuals. We want them to live long, and we want them to live happily. And we look at the uniqueness in health. We look at everybody as a unique person. There cannot be a single thing to be doled out to anybody. If Vandana comes to me with toe pain, I need a systems approach to understand Vandana, mind, body, spirit. And I want her to explore herself. I want her to go on that journey to ask herself, who am I? So whether it's like asking Vandana, do you get angry? Do you get anxious? Do you get depressed? I'm asking her to explore what her energy principle is, and what that is her prakriti, and what her vikriti is. So, it's a very, very beautiful science with a whole personalized systems approach to health.
Beautiful. So, for example, if I was to come to you with a toe pain versus somebody else to come to you with a toe pain, the toe pain can be the same, but the cause for my toe pain and cause for another person's toe pain could be completely different.
Absolutely.
And Ayurveda accounts for that, correct?
Yes, absolutely. It's not like just based on symptoms that we would treat you, and we would say, okay, NSAIDs now, and then we would not just do an exam, and those are good, diagnostics are good, but we would treat you for the root cause, right? So what has happened in your journey? Is there an issue with the asti dhatu? What has happened? Was it an external cause? Was it trauma? Or is it that there is a degenerative cause? Is it amavata, which is like rheumatoid arthritis that you may have, which responds differently? It's like it does not respond well to heating or oiling. Or is it degenerative? Like is it osteoarthritis? Is it is it a sannipatika rog? So there are all kinds of examinations, but somebody else may come to me and it may just be like that they bumped their toe and it's hurting, but they've come for a solution. So we do have a solution for the symptoms. It's not like we will make you suffer. We do have a solution for the symptoms. We'll immediately put Muravena oil, or just give you some relief, but then we'll go to the root cause of what is going on with you and treat you as an individual in an individualized manner. So they are tending to infinity solutions.
Wonderful. Also, we talked about balance, right? Now, balance is, and I'm going to read another piece about it being like a razor's edge. It's a dynamic process. It's not like a state that you reach and now you're done. It's a process of continuous elements, environment, self, thought, body, all different levels interacting with each other, and us adapting and moving and flowing with that change, right? So talk a little bit about the dynamicness of this balance.
So basically we call it the cosmic dance, right? So there are 3 doshas, right? And why do we call them dosh? Because they can go out of balance. So vata, pitta, kapha, right? And they are comprised of the 5 elements. And they're constantly, even in the day, they're going out of balance, right? Even hunger is, though it is natural, it is an imbalance, right? And we will encounter it at least 3 times a day, right? So, and we want to bring it back to balance, which is why we eat. So this is constantly happening in nature, and it is happening in ourselves. And we respond to nature. Let's say right now, there is a Ritu Sandhi happening. So there is a transition between fall and winter. And when we are aware of that, we know that Vata is declining and Kapha is increasing. This is a very vulnerable time, which is why even in the pandemic, it is a vulnerable time. So that awareness of, that constantly things going out of balance in the day, the circadian rhythms, they ebb and flow. There is a vata time, there is a pitta time, there is a kapha time in our life cycle. There is a vata time, like, which is aging, right? And how to handle that. So just to be aware that things will keep ebbing and flowing. It's like, being in tune with nature. There is a circadian rhythm, there is a cardiac rhythm, there is a menstrual rhythm, there is a hormonal rhythm, right? There is a rhythm of day and night. And like you talk in sky breath, the rhythm of the breath. So that's what we keep trying to bring back to balance.
Very nice, very nice. Actually, it's very interesting. The word rhythm comes from rita, which is the rita, the rut, the ritu. All of these things, they are connected, right? It's all about the repetitiveness, the cyclical flow of everything that's happening in creation. Let me also quickly read another excerpt here, which says, somebody asked this question, and this is pertinent especially to the virus episode that we are encountering, and it may be a little bit of a read, but I think it's really valuable to what we're talking about. So somebody asked the question, I've used the technique of observing sensations in the body when I have a headache or a kink in my neck, but they're like symptoms or sensations. But when you get something like a virus that stays dormant in your system, or is sort of hidden, and there are no symptoms for it for a long time, is there any way that that situation could be watched? Does it exist in a different form, in a different sphere? So Sri Sri says in this book, Wisdom for the New Millennium, as you start observing, meditating, and having more attention on consciousness, on the mind as pure consciousness, it is sure to increase your resistance potentiality and destroy those disease cells. You need to practice regularly for a long period of time, and with full faith and love and devotion, it is definitely possible. Watch out for this thought in the mind that says, oh, I have this disease. It is just a term that you heard from your doctor who looked into some analysis. Do you see that? The more you start believing it is there, you will be confirming it in your system rather than having an attention on this beautiful knowledge of who you really are, about the nature of your consciousness and the power of consciousness over the body. Focus attention on health rather than on illness. So science gives you a false idea that it knows. I'm not against science at all, but people only have half knowledge. If you ask a really qualified doctor, he says, we don't know how things function in the body, how things are made to happen. Science, medicine does not know how our mind works. We don't really know how the body has this healing power in it. We are all educated in half science and half knowledge, so we believe more in medications. We believe more in these different systems. We believe more in the existence of disease, and we believe more in the reality of body than in the reality of the mind. We must always have in our mind that creation is full of secrets. Again, the concept of infinite possibilities. Any day it can bring up any secret. 20 years ago, nobody had heard about HIV. It's an unfoldment in creation after another. One can be amazed at this whole phenomenon, and now that it's from, and know that it's from this level of consciousness, from the level of the mind, from where this whole function is happening. The presence of consciousness, its sacredness, its secrecy, knowing that you know what brings joy in life. So basically, mind over matter, and to know that, even though we have experts who tell us this is disease, or we have these terminology and this complex scientific language, knowing still that it's not the whole picture.
Absolutely. It's not black and white. There's a gray area. In fact, we are taught that, health and disease are just two sides of the same coin. Yeah. And in Ayurveda, we always focus on the host rather than the krimi or, the microorganism. Because the thing is, it's always, your body is a battleground, not in a negative way, but, it's enjoying itself. There's, bacteria and viruses all the time. Now, if you look at so what Gurudev refer to as psychoneuroimmunology, right? The concept of your mind, which boosts your immunity. Now, if you look at, the definition of immunity itself in Ayurveda, now consider that in this room, there are 5 people. And there's the cold virus, right? Or any coronavirus, right? One person will fall sick, and then 2 may not, and 1 may develop some kind of autoimmune condition, and then a 5th may socially distance and walk away, right? Sensible thing to do. Yes. Right? A lot of people are not doing it, so there are sensible things to do, especially in this Janapadham Vyadhi, like it's a pandemic. But then what I think Gurudev is referring to is also the different types of immunity. And in Ayurveda, we talk about, and of course, even in modern medicine, we talk about innate and acquired immunity. The body is so complex. In Ayurveda, we talk about 3 types of immunity. The Sahaj immunity, which, you are kind of innately born with, which is why prenatal care is given so much importance, even before you try to conceive. Then there is...
Sorry. Yeah. Is there a term for immunity? Is there a rough, like
Vyadhikshamatvam? Yeah. So Vyadhikshamatvam, and the definition of Vyadhikshamatvam is actually that it's your ability to resist diseases and to recover faster if you do fall sick. So resist diseases even before they arise, right? So that potential is there, but you are trying to work through your ability to resist diseases, and it's linked to your ojas, your bala, your strength, right? So how does ojas develop? It's the net result of the digestion and the formation of all your dhatus, all your tissues. And so that's why we give so much importance to the gut, which is again linked to the mind, right? So we give importance to the mind, the enteric nervous system. That's always been recognized by Ayurveda. Then your gut and Agni, metabolism, digestion, and dealing with ama or toxins, and then the formation of all the dhatus leads to ojas, which is your strength, your bala, and vyadhikshamatvam. And of the 3 types, so the first was Sahaj, which you are born with. So somebody may be born a little sickly, but that's okay. Then there is Kalaja immunity, which is the time-based immunity. So sometimes elderly people, their immunity might decline, or in some seasons, which is why we have the presence of seasonal diseases, right? So in some seasons, immunity might decline. Winter's actually good, but it depends on the nature of the virus also. Right now, we are dealing with a Vata Kapha virus. So, basically that's why this is a season that we really ask people to be sensible about their choices. And the third is acquired immunity, Yuktikrat immunity, right? Yuktikrat Vyadhi Shamatvam, which can be enhanced. So that is where we have that in our hands. It can be enhanced through our diet. It can be enhanced through our Dinacharya practices, which is, our daily regimen, through our Ritucharya practices, which is our, seasonal regimen. It can be enhanced through some Rasayana herbs that we take, right? So I noticed that you posted about some Rasayana herbs also. And so, all of that, and it can be enhanced through meditation. So meditation is really important here when we talk about psychoneuroimmunology. It's Achar Rasayana. It's like tapping into, that source which improves your immunity, which Gurudev refers to. And meditation, yoga, exercise, all of these. So they boost immunity, and, that gives hope, right? That immunity can be developed. A generalized immunity can be developed. And so, I think that is what gives hope.
Exactly. And, when we talk about even for a person, like when we do a science experiment, let's say, right, and we're trying to grow something in a petri dish. So we want to make sure that, okay, if you're trying to see some mold that's growing or something on a petri dish, we make sure that those conditions are conducive for that mold to grow. So within us, inside of our body, if we make conditions conducive for certain viruses and bacteria to grow, we are being a very welcoming host for those viruses. Versus if our body is such that it's not a welcome host, then our job becomes so much easier. We're so much more ahead of the game, right? That even if we are attacked by stuff that's going to make us sick, any virus or bacteria or whatever, then as a host, we don't welcome it with open arms, and we are able to fight it off either right away, not show any symptoms, or we are able to live with it without it overcoming or overpowering us, correct?
Absolutely. And that's the wonderful thing that, there are, while we want people to be cautious, like I'm, in California, where, in 10 months, we had just 1 million cases. And in 6 weeks, because, people thought that we were doing okay, we went to another million cases, right?
Yeah.
And so we really want people to be cautious. And that is, again, part of the public health measures that we do in Ayurveda also, just the distancing and,
Not doing pragya prad.
Yes, not doing pragya.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So we do want that, but at the same time, we want people to be hopeful that 80% of the cases are either mild or moderate, right? And then it's the other 20% that we need to absolutely attend to. So if you manage to, and I know sometimes it becomes a mental health challenge also for a lot of people, like a lot of people are struggling right now, but if you manage to at least attend to your diet, right? So eat 3 regular meals, right?
So let me quickly grab a pen and let's note this down so that everybody has this time too. So eat 3 regular meals a day. Okay, let's go with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
regular meals.
Yeah. So and at 3 regular meals at a regular time. So
Regular time, yeah.
That's really more important than even what you eat, or when you eat, more important. Yeah, or how much you eat. So eat 3 regular meals. Don't eat junk. Don't eat processed foods, white flour, white sugar, right? Avoid, right? Sometimes you do tend to slip, and that's okay. You have that much resilience. And try to eat warm food, cooked food, unctuous food, right?
So quickly, warm food and unctuous food, why?
So basically, because that's easier to digest, right? We always ask you to eat cooked food because it's easier on your agni, right? If you eat, especially at this time, like kapha time, if you eat cold salads, and it's definitely going to hamper your agni. Not as much as maybe in the summer, but right now it will, right? And keep sipping warm water. So in the morning, you can have like 1 glass of lukewarm water, but then through the day, you can sip warm water, or you can have some kind of, teas. Like we recommend kwat, like a kashaya that you can have, like an Ayush kwat kind of tea. So you can make it based on, what suits you. You can add dry ginger, and you can add cinnamon. You can add some raisins if that is a little acidic for you, right? And boil that, and you can add tulsi. You can add, any kind of cloves, or any kind of spices that.
So the reason for that being, again, about balance, about balancing that right now the weather around outside is cold.
It's kapha weather, right? It's cold weather. So you want the heat in the body, and also because these are good for the respiratory system. So for the pranavaha srotas, these are good.
Kapha.
And yes, so this is good. These are good anti-kapha kind of viruses. Kapha is like a principle which is heavy and congestive. So you don't want that congestion in this weather. So just having those kind of teas helps, right? So, and a little bit of ginger is heating, but then again, you want it to be individualized. For some people, it generates hyperacidity. Very rare cases, because ginger is generally good for everybody, but some turmeric, you can have turmeric milk in this weather. That's really good, right? So and then you can also add some herbs to your daily regimen. So Shrishi Tattva has Amrit, and I think they are trying to get Kabasur Kudinir they will get it by the end of this year. So that is a Siddha formulation which has proved to be really effective in clinical trials. So if you can incorporate Shakti drops, those kind of herbs in your daily regimen, they are okay for everybody. Amrit is good for everybody. In fact, even Kabasur Kudinir has Amrit, right? And you can, that's a Siddha formulation, not an Ayurveda formulation, but I do know it has 15 herbs, and all heating herbs, Vata Kapha pacifying herbs, because the nature of our Krimi virus is again Vata Kapha. So
you're countering it, pacifying those things. Yeah. And the balance, right? So providing the opposite quality of whatever is the imbalance, that brings it back to balance.
Absolutely. And those are the 2 principles we use everywhere. We use the 5 elements, that like increases like and opposites balance each other. So in this weather, we want to have, more heating stuff. Now, kapha and vata are actually contradictory principles. The only place where they meet is heating. So, stay warm, right? Cover your head when you go out, and then how else do you stay warm? Like a little bit of oiling, you don't want too much. I mean, depends on your own vikriti, your own imbalance or your own prakriti, but have warm food, right? Have warming spices.
Don't have ice cream nowadays. That's just
no ice cream, no cold water, never if possible. And it's so hard to tell teenagers, right? We both have.
Yes, that's just asking for trouble. That's like really making yourself a welcome host for the virus.
Absolutely. And we recently had a rogi who was drinking like 2 glasses of water at one time and then 2 glasses another time. No, sip water through the day, right? And then half an hour before, after food, just for your digestion, don't, have water. So that's about ahar. And, that is one of the 3 pillars of health in Ayurveda, which is nutrition. Then there is, the other is your lifestyle, where of course, we recommend meditation, some exercise, getting some vitamin D, right? And then we also recommend that, you do some yoga. And it's very tempting right now to go out of your routine. So, watch Netflix till late. But sleep is very important. That is the 3rd pillar, right? Because Nidra, in fact, there was a study that was done. I think it was a UCSF study where, the cold virus was injected in the nostrils of, people that volunteered for the study. And they found that people that slept for just 5 hours versus 6 hours versus 7 hours, they found people that slept longer had a reduced susceptibility to, and then, there's also inflammation which sets in if you sleep less, right? Which you don't want at this time. So when you do these sensible things, you sleep enough and avoid daytime sleep, right? Because it increases kapha. You don't want to, unless you're depleted and you're sick and, a little baby or, elderly person, avoid daytime sleep, right? So those are some of the things. Reduce stress, because, that really reduces your capability to fight disease. And, there have been so many studies about the sky breath meditation and about how it improves vagal tone, reduces inflammation, how it enhances your immunity. There have been so many studies about meditation. In fact, there was one study that it helps you recover easier if you fall sick. And then that's for long-term meditators, but even beginning meditators have that kind of health benefits. So there, you just, you can find any number of studies on the health benefits of meditation. So definitely reduce stress through meditation at this time. So those are just some of the things that you can do.
Wonderful. So basically, again, there is a lot that we can do. There's a lot that we can do, taking correct measures within us to be able to, and it starts with proper lifestyle choices. A lot of it also is common sense, right? I mean, if you think about it, it's 5 elements, and our body is made up of those 5 elements. So if we look in nature, how are these 5 elements interacting with each other? Then a lot of it we can apply, and it makes common sense. Okay, so when my skin outside is dry, the weather's probably that's what's happening inside me as well. It's all skin after all. So maybe inside skin needs some, just like I need put moisturizer or oil on my outside skin, maybe I need to do the same thing inside my body.
Absolutely.
So bringing this same awareness, this common sense awareness, that's what's beautiful about it, that it's self-evident in so many ways.
And, if it isn't, then your body is going to prompt you. You're going to get like itchy, you're going to, feel dry. So then, you'll apply oil, and then, there are so many ways that the body is going to prompt you, right? Because you're cold, that's why you're wearing something warm, right? So where that's the body's intelligence, just how it tries to maintain homeostasis or the balance of doshas, right? So it's when you're exercising, then you breathe faster for greater oxygen intake. Your body is always going to prompt you. Are you listening to your body? Are you aware? And that awareness comes again from just, connecting with the source. And for that, meditation. In fact, Vandana, right at the beginning of the pandemic, like Gurudev was addressing people, and Ali, she, sent me a translation. And basically he said that through this pandemic, attend to your immunity and meditate. And the importance of meditation just for all of us at this time is so important. Whatever way you do it, if you can connect with yourself, with your source, which is the source of all healing, that awareness, that innate intelligence, which is what you talked about. Absolutely.
Yes, yes, beautiful. Fantastic. So have another piece that I would like to read, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So it says here, the cause of disease is often extremely complex, but one thing can be said for certain: no one has proved that getting sick is necessary. In fact, quite the opposite is true. Every day we come into contact with millions of viruses, bacteria, allergens, and fungi, and only the tiniest fraction of these encounters have led to disease. It is not uncommon for doctors who see patients with respiratory tracts that contain clusters of virulent meningococcus, I don't know if I'm saying that right, bacteria living there harmlessly. Only on rare occasions do they break out and cause meningitis, a serious and at times fatal infection. Many of us carry the varicella virus lying dormant in our nerves, but ever since about with chickenpox, but only rarely under stress does it reactivate to cause the painful condition of shingles. What provokes such an attack? No one knows precisely, but it seems to involve a mysterious factor called host resistance, meaning that we, the host of germs, somehow open or close the window to them. More than 99.99% of the time, the window is closed, which implies that each of us is much closer to perfect health than we realize. It's so beautiful, right? So the leading cause of death in the United States is heart disease, which in most cases is caused by deposits of plaque blocking the coronary arteries that conduct oxygen to the heart. When cholesterol and other debris begin to obstruct these arteries, oxygen starvation threatens to impair the heart's function. Yet the course of heart disease is highly personal. One person with a single, rather small bit of plaque can be incapacitated by angina, the squeezing chest pain symptoms of coronary artery disease. The second person with several deposits of plaque, large enough to block much of the oxygen flow to the heart, might feel nothing. People whose coronary arteries were 85% blocked have been known to run marathons, while others have dropped dead of a heart attack with completely clean vessels. In fact, recent studies have found that many younger people who die suddenly of heart attack have none of the unusual risk factors. So in addition to our body's physical immunity, we have a strong emotional resistance to sickness as well. Yes. So what he's saying is that it's not as simple as a diagnosis. It's not as simple as, okay, we see this and that. There is a lot of gray area, and there is a lot of your own understanding of where you are in your health that makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. And the sad part is that today in the US, 6 out of 10 people have some kind of chronic lifestyle-based disorder. Yeah. And this could be hypertension, this could be any cardiac disease, joint disease, it could be certain forms of cancer. And it's our own resilience, which is an interaction of mind, body, spirit, right? So there is emotional health there is our own mental health, and they all interact. Now when we talk about rasayana or rejuvenating formulations like Shakti drops, so they actually address not just the immunity but the mind, because they're inalienable. So that is one factor in Ayurveda. We always consider any kind of immunity to be linked to the mind. And just the power of the mind. And if that makes you feel vulnerable, don't, because your own body's survival, body, mind, spirit complexes, survival instinct is very strong. Your resilience is very strong. That sense of hope is very strong, which is, why if you just go right now and, look at the sun, the sun, or, look at the grass or look at nature, you will find yourself reviving. There's always hope. So I really do like this. We have a different way of viewing, cardiac issues. We view it as a issue of ama in that case, like where there is plaque. So, how that ama builds up, we also qualify it as psychological armor, right?
Mm.
So there is some psychological armor that we deal with in cleansing. Cleansing is another very important aspect in our regimen to deal with diseases like Kale Shamshodhana. We every now and then we ask people to do a cleanse, because that gets rid not just of physical toxins, but also so the endogenous, the environmental, and the psychological toxins. So you're such a complex person. How can there be just one diagnosis, one set of treatment for everybody, right? So it has to be a personalized, natural, holistic systems approach.
Exactly, and then also whatever works, right? Why
Right.
limit yourself to one option or two
Mhm.
options? There is
Absolutely.
lots of options available, whether it be allopathy, whether it be Ayurveda,
Absolutely.
whether it be
Right.
homeopathy, which
Right.
a lot of people discredit homeopathy, but I personally,
No.
my family have seen
Yeah.
tremendous, like if it's something that works, doesn't
Right.
matter. Who cares whether it's placebo effect? Who cares whether whatever? It's the healing that we are concerned with, right?
Absolutely.
So as long as it's healing, why not? Why not?
Absolutely.
Why not go for that? So the same way about Siddha,
Yeah.
this Kabasur Kudinir. We have
Right.
all of these different modalities available to us. Why not use them rather than picking and choosing and saying that, oh, again, it's like I belong to some camp.
Right. Absolutely. No,
That's just
absolutely.
that's
Yeah,
just ego appeasement. It
absolutely.
doesn't matter to us what camp we belong to. What we are concerned
Right.
about is healing. So whatever
Exactly.
enable.
Right. For the rogi, what is best for the, anybody who comes to us, what is best for their healing. So, and let's say for me, for my son, for instance, like the first Ayurveda class I went to, that was the first thing we were told. Okay, so there are strengths that Ayurveda has, and then there are strengths that allopathy has, and then we'll take all of the we'll do
Best
an
of
integrative. Yeah, we'll use an integrative approach. I know that he needs an EpiPen shot if he has an anaphylactic reaction, but I can also work on his immune system through Ayurveda. So, and honoring everything, honoring all those systems of medicine in an integrative approach is so important. And just thinking of what is best for the individual, also for nature and the environment, which we have been so horrid with, like that I can't think of any other word right now. But I think that is one of the things that this pandemic has taught us, that we really need to honor the environment, the elements. We need to honor nature, the other species, biodiversity. And that's something that Ayurveda actually in pandemic approach always talks about. When these are out of balance, that karma, that cause leads to this kind of an effect, where our and Dr. David Frawley, he's a Vedic scholar, he says that the physical and psychological immunity of the world and our artificial way of living is such that that is why he recommends in